What's going on, team? Welcome back to the BI Edge. Today, we are going to be running through crude oil consumption by country over the past several years, who have a look at which countries consume the most crude oil on a daily and an annual basis. Stay tuned. All right, so what we've got here is crude oil consumption by country. This is based on the global consumption data, EIA. So basically pretty simple here, two graphs, daily crude oil consumption in million barrels per day by country. Okay, so we've got the US here at the top. This is using 2024 data for our first visual, where they do 19 million barrels a day there in consumption of crude oil. China second at 15, India 5, Russia 3. Okay, and you see these countries down here um, are all around 3, um, followed by Canada, Germany, Iran, Mexico, all around that 2 per day, and then Australia's down here at 1 with Italy and Spain. Okay, so that kind of just gives you a bit of an idea as to what our daily crude oil consumption is, relative to the global consumption, which is 94 million barrels a day there. Okay, so monthly oil consumption there goes to 2.85 K. This is all just sort of estimates here based on the data. This is sort of what we know. So coming over here, we've got um, daily crude oil consumption breakdown by country. Okay, so this gives us a percentage based on the 94. The US consuming 20% of the crude oil. 20% of the total crude oil consumed globally is consumed by the US population. So that's quite large. And then China there at 15. Now, if we into account population comparisons, then maybe China would have a higher rate than the US. That would be another interesting sort of topic here too. What is crude oil consumption per capita as such? Um, so you'd have to look at industries, what industries use crude oil, etc., to uncover that. Um, so if we have a look down here, you can see that a lot of countries are just doing a million barrels, um, a million barrels per day there. So Thailand, UK, Singapore, Australia, France, Indonesia. Indonesia's doing 1, Mexico's doing 2, Iran's doing 2. Okay. So that's interesting. So one of the things that I found personally quite interesting is if I come back to 1984, okay, so I go 40 years prior to 2024. I'm using old data here too, but this sort of the 24 data does give us a similar rough estimate of what it is today. When we come back to 1984 here, okay, and I go, okay, we were only doing 55 million barrels per day globally. Okay, so it's a lot less comparatively here to 2024 when we're doing 94. Okay, so what's that, sort of 40% less odd? Um, so then, you go, okay, well, let's have a look. United States still doing 14 million barrels a day, and China's doing 15 million barrels per day, at present. So that's really interesting. United States have been big consumers of crude oil for a long time. We look at the former Soviet Union here, so Russia, 8, and then Japan 4, West Germany, because this is pre Germany when the Berlin Wall was demolished. So it's 2, China over here, only doing 2 million barrels per day in crude oil consumption. So not a lot there, and Iran was only doing 1. So there's definitely been increases there in consumption over time, whereas Australia there was still at 1. Okay, now these numbers are rounded too, so um, some of these guys might be doing 0.8 or zero point 0.7 and it's rounded to 1. This is just, as I said, a bit of a rough idea as to sort of what's happened over time. Um, if we look at, where this is here, the United States at 26% of the crude oil consumption market here. So that kind of just gives us a bit of an idea there as to crude oil consumption. You can link this back to petrodollars post when US went off the gold standard with Nixon in 1971. So, and they introduced the petrodollar to sort of, strengthen their economy so that, oil would be traded in petrodollars versus, other currencies. So, if we look at today, because Iran and China are such strong trading partners, there's a push for Iran to even potentially, or an interest for Iran to potentially, try and trade their uh, oil in yuan as opposed to petrodollar or petro yuan versus the petrodollar. Petro, assuming means petroleum because this is the oil-based industry, and that's another interesting topic that you can sort of link back into all this sort of stuff here. Okay, do I have the 1980s stuff? Yes, I do. Okay, I can go to 1980s. This is closer to the 70s as I can get in this particular data here, before the Iran revolution, I believe 1979, maybe. So this is a year after that. So that kind of just, gives us a bit of a look at sort of what's happening. Australia, they're still using, I'm doing a million barrels a day, but United States, 16 there, really strong there in consumption. So for a nation to consume that much, you would also presume that their production is quite high. Okay, and you can see they had 27% of the consumption. 27% of the global consumption comes from the US alone in 1980. Okay, so if you found this video interesting, guys, post your thoughts and questions down below. Always keen for a discussion, and I look forward to catching you in the next video. Cheers.